Hello, hello! Welcome, everyone. Smaller crowd than usual. No problem. If only one person's watching, good enough for me. Heck, if no one's watching. I just like to hear myself talk sometimes. What's up, Preach? Thanks for being here. So yeah, for those of you who don't know, I really do apologize for this being delayed today. I have no idea how long I'll go. When my wife gets home, I'm done. I could get a call. What's going on is car trouble with my sister-in-law. I think we're getting it worked out. We're going to try to work on it later in the week here, but I think we finally got it towed. Everything worked out, so no one's in any danger or anything like that. Everything good. But I do apologize to all of you for not having my regularly scheduled time, and I have no idea how long this will go, and this show's totally unprepared for, and it's off the cuff. But let's be honest, that's mostly my best shows, when I'm just rambling and raving. Everything up here. Don't need notes. No notes today. So, no, seriously though, thank you for everyone. And you all deserve more professionalism, so I am sorry that I missed my time today, but I am committed to putting out a lot of material every week for everyone, not just for the people that financially donate, but also for the people that have given me encouragement, that have said that they like what I'm saying. I think it's important that we get independent voices out there, and because of that, I think it's important that I consistently be putting content out, hopefully quality content, hopefully content that everyone likes and not phoning it in. So I try to go hours every week in both my content that's not live and my live content. So just a couple notes to get started. If people are watching this in retrospect, and for Preacher, who's like the only person watching now, I'm going to start to do some content exclusively on DLive. That content will be live content. And what I'll do is I might start doing like the first hour of my live shows will be on YouTube and DLive, and the second half on DLive. And the reason for this is I'm trying to grow that platform, not just my following on that platform, but that platform in general. And the reason is, I think it's important that we get competitors to YouTube because of their censorious nature. And so far, so good with DLive. So there are some, what's up, Ford Nation? There are some, technical conveniences still more with YouTube than DLive that comes from my end on the content creating end. But that doesn't matter. I'm still trying to promote DLive. So I'm not going to start that this week, but eventually it will be. You'll have to follow me on DLive for the second half of my live shows. Now, when it comes to my regular videos, those are all going to be coming out on the rest of my platforms. So another thing that before I get ranting about the debate the other night and other things, crazy Democrat related. So I just put a video out, which you all can check. It's just 2 minutes. What I say in that video is this. I'm not just someone who likes to provide content as an independent creator, but I also like watching a lot, and I'm very fortunate. I get to work with a lot of great content creators, so that's a lot of fun. But some of the people that I watch, I haven't had a chance to work with yet. One of those people is the channel Pete the Patriot. I think his show's great. He comes at things from, a very similar angle as me. I think we would agree on a lot of issues, but he's definitely got his own style. One of the things he likes to do is have kind of some contests and give out prizes. I happen to be tuning in one day, and I just flipped over, and I had no idea what the prize was, but he's like, yeah, last question, first one to answer gets a prize. How many squares are there on a chessboard? And I happened to be playing a game of chess online as I was watching this. So I was like, that's 64. And I won. And my prize came today. So I wanted to show everyone how cool this is. I got, let's see if you can see this. This is, I know I got a reflection here. An official piece of the fence from the DMZ in Korea. The demilitarized zone that separates North and South Korea. How cool is that? And this was given, I believe, if you read here, it says that this gift, this is the gift which officials in the Republic of Korea present to the American soldiers on duty in Korea, taken as a token of gratitude. And so I think that was an awesome gift, and it's something I'll keep framed, and I'll keep here in my office. So, yeah, check out Pete's channel. It's just Pete the Patriot on YouTube. If you check out my video I did of this, I got a link right to his channel there. So check it out. I thought that was really cool, and I can't wait to talk to him and say thank you for that. So I did win that. Who would have thought? Check out the big brain on Rob winning the internet contest. Yeah, I know I felt like a jerk because apparently there were he had questions all night. And I just happened to come in during the grand prize and nailed it like that. So, yeah, I'm going to try to make it to that Penn Rally, Ford Nation. I absolutely would love to, and I'd love to record live there. So it's something that I got to see. I know this is hard for people to understand. My work schedule, because I do home health care, I can't talk a lot about it, but there are two of us that work at this house. That means anytime one of us takes off, the other person's there their half of the week. then my half the week, then their half the week. So you're basically there 10 days without getting to go home. It's really, really, really difficult for me to take any time off work, even though I have vacation time saved up. So I'm really going to try to make it a commitment to go to the rally. What they're talking about in the chat there on DLive. I forget that not everyone could see the chats on all channels. Ford Nation and Preacher are inviting me to a rally that's going to occur. I believe it's in Harrisburg. Am I correct on that, Preacher? And it's going to be a Second Amendment rally here in Pennsylvania. I would love to go, not only because I support the Second Amendment, but also to go as someone that's recording so I could show my support and give a fair assessment of the crowd that's there. And I also take my role in that capacity very seriously, in that I would seriously like to interview people that were for the rally, were against the rally, as long as they aren't being violent, and get honest opinions. I'm not going to go there and bully people. I'll leave them have their say. That would be kind of the idea. It's in okay. Yeah, gotcha, Preacher. June 8th is the rally in Harrisburg for the Second Amendment rally. So for anyone who would like to attend, I'll get more information as we get closer to June on that. And it is something that I'm going to personally try to attend. And yeah, a good friend of the show here, Preacher, is offered to put me up for the night if I go out the night early and then go to the rally. So we'll see what happens. I would love to do that. And there's going to be more events than I'm going to, but it's really difficult for me to get time off and things like that. So we'll see how it goes. And I would have it. Preacher would also double as my bodyguard, which I'd need. I'm a softie, despite looks. Not much of a scrap. I could scrap if need be, but no, I'm just joking. So, so that's kind of the intro here. Let's get to the meat of it. Now, like I said, because of the situation today, I didn't get to plan a show. I've been busy all day. So I thought maybe we'd talk about the debates. I watched the Dem debates. For those of you that saw on Drone Tech's DLive channel, I was there. So let me first kind of apologize for that show. I thought the show went fine, and I'm not apologizing for Drone Tech or SJG or even myself, anything we said. It's just very difficult to do a show like that because you have, even me as someone who's trying to, it's hard to listen to what we're saying plus what the debaters are saying. So it's hard to get a feel for how much should we, the presenters or the panelists, be talking versus how much should we just be leaving the debaters talk. So that stuff's tough, but thank you very much for everyone that tuned in. I thought it went well, all things considered. We're still working out the best way to do a live show like that. DLive's great because you could actually stream something like that. I don't think it's unethical or immoral at all to stream something that's literally could be the future of our country, a debate on deciding who the president of the United States might be. YouTube doesn't like you to stream that type of stuff. They don't even want you streaming something like the State of the Union, which, that's provided by our tax dollars. So, that's why you go to DLive for that sort of stuff. So it wasn't on my channel, it was on Drone Tech's, but I thought it was cool. And I think he's trying to get a copy of that up, which you could check. But D Gulag says Bloomberg did very well. That's a take. Yeah, right, Preacher. It was hard for me to hear the debate sometimes. So I prefer, when it comes to the debates and stuff like that, maybe my personal preference, if I'm watching it, I love hearing people's commentary on debates. Particularly, that's something that I love to do. I was a good debater in college. But I prefer to listen to the whole debate myself and then hear the commentary afterwards. So, right, Dog Pound on Periscope says, after the debate, I'm going to vote for Trump. Do you mind me asking you, Dog Pound, are you a Democrat? Or are you someone who traditionally leans liberal? Or are you independent, third party? Do you mind answering? Because I think that's interesting to get people's takes that, so many people in my audience, I think, have already made up their mind who they're going to vote for. And one of the things I was trying to say when I was discussing the debate at the end of it was, remember, the audience for the debate isn't, people that are already made up their mind and going to vote for Trump. It's predominantly people that haven't made up their mind. They might vote Democrat, they might vote Republican, or particularly in this sense, people that are Democrats because it's a primary. But that doesn't mean you can't be watching if you're moderate saying, well, I'm going to see what they say now and see how they'll vote. So when you view the debate in that context, my gamesmanship wise, I'm not talking about what would be the best policy, what would be best for the country, but merely winning the game of getting nominated, because that's kind of what it is at the end of the day. Thank you for voting for Rob Noor. Absolutely. What are you trying to do? So there's 6 of you. How are you trying to win? The front runners, it seems, going in were clearly Bernie Sanders and Mike Bloomberg, despite the fact Bloomberg, is just a Johnny-come-lately that's trying to buy the election. So So if you're those other four, you need to be not just attacking those two frontrunners, but also separating yourself from the rest of the pack. So the good thing about that debate was, for the first time, they actually went after each other in a serious way, particularly Bloomberg, but they went after Bernie as well. It was clear that they were the two frontrunners based on the amount of attacks they got. But you also saw, like, Klobuchar going at it with Warren. You saw that Klobuchar was going at it with Buttigieg, etc. Biden tried to get involved, attacking Bloomberg. So, yeah, and Preacher says on DLive, it was a middle school brawl, not a presidential debate. Yeah, I mean, it's really tough. You have to be thinking. So you're going in here and you're like, okay, you can't make the mistake of, we're just going to play nice with the frontrunners, or Bloomberg and Bernie are just going to play nice. You have to differentiate yourself and separate why you deserve to win, particularly if you're Bernie to Bloomberg, right? Because you know Bloomberg's going to have more money than you, and he's going to be putting more ads out there. So you have to go on the offensive. And quite literally, Bloomberg is the antithesis of Bernie Sanders. Like, Bernie claims to find billionaires to be immoral, so clearly he needs to step up and attack Bloomberg, or it seems like he's weak, or it seems like he's disingenuous. So that attack needs to happen. Bloomberg, who's running as kind of trying to pretend to be a moderate, he's clearly got to attack Bernie because Bernie's technically the front runner right now, and he's the antithesis of Bloomberg. So you expect those two attacks. You expect the other four to be attacking those two frontrunners and maybe each other somewhat. So that's all expected. But how do you do that with class and with still talking about policies that will then be appealing to people outside of the Democratic Party? And that's where they fall short. This is why you see people like Chuck Todd going into the debate that were saying things like, oh, how do we focus on just Donald Trump? And how do we focus on not having this win be a win for Donald Trump? Of course, Chuck Todd, one of the moderators, who's supposedly a journalist, but you could tell he's just a team player. He's cheering for the establishment Democrats. And so he's worried that the more his team infights, the more it helps the opponent. Where a real journalist would say, hey, I'm going to ask tough questions and winner be damned. That's not my job to decide the winner. My job is to be a journalist. But we don't have journalists anymore. Very few of them. Check out John Solomon, Sarah Carter, Yeah, Heidi, you did good for not watching the debate. And if you had a lot of sharp objects, you might have started jabbing yourself in the forehead or something. So let me get to the high points of the debate. So in that context, I thought they did a poor job. And I'm being objective here. Now, as a Trump supporter, policy-wise, I mean, it's ridiculous. First, they didn't talk about the economy at all. That's basically 1 or 2 on everyone that's polled top topics that matter when it comes to the 2020 election. So strange they didn't talk about it, but not strange because the economic numbers currently for Trump look good. So what are you going to do? You're the Democratic moderators at the MSNBC. You're doing everything you can to bury Trump. So you talk about things that you think will help bury Trump. I just think objectively, I'm going to try to get a good friend of mine, my campaign manager that ran my campaign in this last year's special election where I ran for District 12 in Pennsylvania Congress in the special election. For those of you who don't know, his name's Tom. He's a Democrat. Tom's a Democrat. One of the things I try to do is reach across the aisle. Me and Tom disagree on some policy issues, but we both understand that we're good people that actually care about the regular people. And I think we have great discussions because he looks at things as a Democrat and he's like, I haven't talked to him since the last debate, but I can tell you this, going into that debate, after the Iowa caucus, I think he's disgusted with the Democratic Party. We'll see. I'll talk to him after the debate. He's actually someone who favors Klobuchar. So it'll be interesting. I'll have him on soon to talk about him. Brett Baer does do a good job moderating Crockpot. I agree. Crocker-Roy, I agree. But yeah, I mean, I know I'm biased. So maybe I don't have the best hot take on this objectively, but I thought they did pathetically. I thought some of their personal attacks were okay. They were attacks that I would have made, but I would have tried to make them in a more appealing way. But I thought that they didn't offer anything in terms of particulars in politics. They all come away looking exactly like what they accused Trump of being: petty, insulting, things like that. And when you're almost exclusively attacking your opponent, or in this case, Donald Trump, based on his character, right? There weren't a lot of attacks of his policies other than shallow, he puts kids in cages. Oh, that was the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals under Obama that started to do that? Our bad. That same most liberal court in America the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. But, whatever. They spread that lie like it's all Trump that did that. Whatever. But other than that, there wasn't a lot of specifics. Just orange man bad, orange man bad, orange man bad. He doesn't like women. He's mean. He says terrible things. He causes division. Oh, and we're going to spend the whole debate arguing like we're third graders with each other. Not really the most effective attack, because if you're someone who's watching and you're like, oh, okay, I have a family to support. What are the Democrats offering for, how to improve my economic situation? I hope maybe you're climate change. Well, what's things going to look like in 20 years if you guys are in charge, And so maybe you had some, actual questions that you would like answered, or some actual problems you see in the United States you'd want solved. If you went into that debate wondering that stuff, and all you hear is them say, Trump's a big meanie. Now we're going to act like we're from the cast of that movie Mean Girls and just yell at each other the whole time. That's not really separating yourself from Donald Trump. And if they can't win that battle of Trump is just a loathsome human being and we're these people of great integrity, they're going to have a really difficult time winning the presidency because they put all their eggs in that basket. Now, had the Democrats hired me, which I probably wouldn't have worked for them anyways, I could have told them there's plenty of things you could talk about policy-wise where you could separate yourself from Trump. You could have said that Trump's deficit spending's bad. You could have said that maybe Trump's not pro-union enough. Not something I agree with, but nonetheless, that's a legitimate way to separate yourself. You could have went after the tariffs more. You could have went after bombing Syria. There's things, but they can't really do that. So that was my overall take. Now, let's talk about the specifics. So the high points of the debate. Number one was this idea of Bloomberg. I said before the debate, if you watch, the most interesting thing going into the debate would be, will Bernie attack Bloomberg? And vice versa, but mostly will Bernie attack Bloomberg? It's very difficult for me as someone who's a conservative, but my big issue is ending corruption. On one hand, as someone who's values the Constitution and thinks that this country was built, if you check out my promo video, it's on the top of my YouTube page now. I think this is the greatest country in the world because the founding fathers and the Constitution understood that we're based on the individual and personal liberty and responsibility. And all of our laws and our rights stem from that idea. Countries before that were based on the collective or based on an elite class of people, a monarchy or an aristocracy of some sort. But the United States was the first country that really, in the most intelligent way, codified, no, it's the individual. Personal freedom, personal responsibility. Socialism that Bernie Sanders is offering is the antithesis of that. So in many ways, Bernie Sanders is exactly the idea that our founding fathers were fighting against, except there's more. There's also the idea of corruption. There's the idea of fakeness and things like that the founding fathers would have also found repugnant. And one of the things I think you could say about Bernie, he's a hypocrite. He absolutely is, and I'll get to that. But he believes in what he speaks in. I don't think you could say that of any of the other people left on the stage. Maybe Klobuchar, I doubt. But certainly not Bloomberg, certainly not Elizabeth Warren, certainly not Joe Biden, certainly not Buttigieg. I mean, these are some of the fakest people you could find. And it's true, as I predicted I say this all the time, my friends on the left. My friends on the right pick on me for saying my friends on the left. But yes, believe it or not, I have many friends on the left, and I hope that some of them watch this show. I tell my friends on the left all the time, the reason you need to be against this corruption is it will eventually come from someone you like. And that's exactly what's happening to Bernie, as predicted, just like it happened in 2016. They're being corrupt. They're going after him. I thought even some of the questions were geared towards being against Bernie in that way, like questioning things like social, which isn't bad. You should question these grandiose plans, don't get me wrong. But it's clear that, particularly at CNN, the agenda's out against Bernie, claiming that Warren's telling the truth and Bernie's lying about Bernie saying that a woman couldn't win. Things like that. All this crap. You're already seeing them set up, which I'll get to later in the show. The idea that Russia's interfering to help Donald Trump again. Mark my words, we're only a week or two away before they say, oh, and the Russians are also helping Bernie in the primaries. The very article that said that Russia's gearing up to help Trump also said, and it's trying to interfere in the Democratic primary. So we're a stone's throw away from them saying, oh, and by the way, Russia's backing Tulsi Gabbard and Bernie Sanders. Wait and see, and then the Bernie bros will go, whoa, this is outrageous. And they'll be right to be outraged. And then us people that have supported Trump will be like, yeah, agreed. Isn't it a shame you supported this corruption when it was against Trump for 3 years? Shame, right? It doesn't mean you have to like Trump. This is what people don't understand, right? And I mean this to everyone. let me talk to the Trump supporters for a minute, of which I'm one. I think my show undoubtedly shows that. There are reasons not to like Trump. There certainly are. And everybody can vote for how they want. I try to give my opinion on why I think we should vote a certain way or the dangers of voting a certain way, but it's up to each of us individually to decide how we want to vote. And if someone says, look, I have different priorities than you, so I made an educated decision to vote a different way, who am I to, that's your choice. I'm just here to tell you, what the dangers I think, the world as I see it. That's all. I think I'm factually based. I certainly do. I think I'm pretty good at what I do. But, if there are people out there that don't have as much time as me to be informed or aren't getting informed in the same ways and they say, I want to vote for this person, you won't hear me on my show like screaming about voters, right? I'm not the Democratic Party. I'm not about to say 50% of Democratic voters are deplorable or blah, blah, blah. You won't hear me say that. I'll talk about their politicians. I'll talk about the people leading the party, but I'm not going to talk about my friends that are voting Democrat and they have reasons to dislike Trump. Whether it be his personality, whether it be, some of his policy, whatever. That's fine. We can have those debates. But even if you dislike Trump, you shouldn't cheer for corruption. That's a huge mistake. And you're seeing now the fruits of it. That's why, one, I implore people on a moral standard. Like, you should not allow politics to throw away your personal integrity. So you shouldn't, for example, become a hypocrite and say, it's okay if there's corruption on my side. As long as it's geared against the right people, I'm all for the corruption. I will never say that. Even if it benefits my side, the corruption, I'll say, no, corruption's corruption. It needs to be weeded out. So, shame on the people on the left that are now realizing, oh man, I cheered for the corruption when it was against Trump, but now I don't like it when it's against Bernie. So morally, that's wrong. But also strategically, how couldn't you see this coming? I warned you. I wasn't the only one. We told you what would happen, and it's happening. So, Bernie and Biden were more coked out than normal. Yeah, they had their vitamins, I guess. Is it all British people that say vitamins, or is it just Bear Grylls? I always got a kick out of it. It's Vitamin Bear! But, so, yeah, we can see the corruption that's going against Bernie. We can see how the Russia smear will come out against him here in the future. So Bernie did go after Bloomberg. Actually, Elizabeth Warren went the most after Bloomberg. Now, say what you will about Elizabeth Warren. She's not afraid to attack people. The problem is this. Sometimes that's the right move, and sometimes it's not the right move. Now, when I run for office, I'll tell you this much. When I go after someone, it will always be the right move. You want to know why? Because I don't need to have a pollster go out and get a focus group to decide, oh, here's exactly how Rob should attack the person he's running against, blah, 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 blah. I don't need that. I'm authentic. I'll do what I want. And that's that. It might be the wrong move strategically. I might lose an election because of my decision to go after someone or not go after someone. But I'll be myself and I'll be able to sleep sleep at night knowing that I didn't go against who I really am. Elizabeth Warren's just listening to what someone tells her. So sometimes strategically it's beneficial. I think she did a good job going after Bloomberg. Other times it's a total disaster. Like, who was informing Elizabeth Warren that it would be a good idea to go after Bernie as a sexist? Elizabeth Warren's path to the presidency was being around after Bernie was out and then having Bernie supporters say, well, Elizabeth Warren's a good second choice. She was the faux progressive. That was the idea. So why would you attack the progressive candidate? It made no sense. It's particularly when the attack was so nonsensical, and that shot her in the foot. Now she's getting some of her heat back, though, because she made good attacks against Bloomberg. And they were effective attacks. Now, one of the things that boggles my mind is, look, again, I'll never bag on the regular 9-to-5 working Joe, regardless if they're Republican, Democrat, or they're not interested in politics, whatever. That's just trying to feed their family, and they don't have time to sit down and watch this stuff like me or read as much as me. I totally get that. Makes sense to me, right? I'm not going to bag on that. But there are a lot of people that follow this at least as much as me that come on the left. And they were like, oh, finally, someone made an argument against Bloomberg. You needed Elizabeth Warren to tell you these obvious things? I mean, for goodness sakes, the frontrunner of your party says it's immoral to be a billionaire. And then the number 2 in your party saying, I'm one of the richest billionaires, and I'm going to buy this election. And you couldn't come up with reasons yourself why one of those things were wrong or those two things didn't fit together? I mean, it seems nonsensical. The ability for people to look at everything that they said about Bloomberg, and it's not just the wealth, mind you, right? It's the idea that the wealth was ill-gotten. It's the idea that he has NDAs against women and has said bad things against women. It's the idea that he said things that are supposedly against minorities, etc. All of that stuff. Now, this is all part and parcel to the identity politics of the establishment Democrat Party. This is the big reason Trump's bad. When you ask the huge reasons Trump's bad, rarely does anyone give you any policy except kids in cages, which is a lie, as I've already said. It's not that there aren't kids in cages, it's that there's no good alternative. And it was actually the most liberal court that said put the kids in cages. This was an attempt by the liberals and the Democrats to say, oh, we'll make the law set up through our activist courts that it's unattainable to stop anyone at the border that has a kid. It's not right to put the kids in cages, therefore just let them in. That's what they want, open borders. Therefore, you set the precedent to anyone who wants to get in this country illegally. You got a kid with you, you're in. Because we can't detain you together, the 9th District Court of Appeals said it's inhumane to put children in cages with adults because bad things can happen. That's what the 9th Circuit Court ruled under Obama. So therefore, the kids had to be kept in separate facilities. Then they say, oh, but it's immoral to take the kids away from their parents. So what's the alternative? Well, what they want is, just let them all in. We'll deal with it later. In other words, open borders. No, that's not going to happen. Of course, it's not ideal that we have kids in these situations. And I would argue that, yes, we should be trying to have more effective facilities. But they're not as bad as being pushed. And remember, most of the times you see the deplorable conditions with these photos of kids in cages, it's pictures from 2014 under the Obama administration. No one had a problem with it then. And that's how you know that the moral outcry is fake. I say this all the time. I get sick and tired of the establishment Democrats trying to couch everything they talk about in terms of morality. It's a lie. It's not about morality. Check out the video I did about Bernie and illegal immigration. He spills the beans the last time he was asked, well, the price of produce will go through the roof in this country if we have to pay a working wage to the people, Americans, who are unwilling to do the job, says Bernie Sanders. Oh, so you want cheap avocados for your toast off the labor of illegal immigrants making pennies a day? That's what you're cheering for, Bernie? No. Actually, we should give the illegal immigrants $15 an hour. Okay, well, didn't you just say if we paid an American that much to pick fruit, that it would destroy our economy? So which is it, Bern? That's what infuriates me about these moral arguments. It's always faux morality. And you know this kids in cages argument's a faux morality argument because as soon as you're like, why didn't you guys say anything under Obama? They're like, you'll put a picture up and everyone on Twitter will be like, oh my God, this is this guy. I couldn't stop crying. That kid was in a cage. I couldn't stop crying. Donald Trump's a monster. This is because he appointed Stephen Miller, who's a racist next to him. Actually, that photo's from 2014 when Obama was president. Oh, okay, we'll remove it then. You'll remove it? That's what the AP did. I did a video on it. Once they found out it was Obama, the AP removed the video. Removed it? Oh, so that kid in that cage didn't matter? Wouldn't you, instead of removing it, going, our bad, everything we just said about Trump being a racist applies to Obama? Oh no, if it was Obama, that kid deserved to be in the cage. Or at least we have no right to look at that picture. Do you see the stupidity? What's up, Milo? You bringing gifts. I can't see if people super chat, by the way. I appreciate your super chat. If someone super chats, please someone let me know in the chat. Otherwise, because I'll show you. In fact, I might be able to show you here. Nope. Let me show you what I can see, basically. Well, you can't see it. It's something like this. This is the general idea of what I see, except do you see on the right there where my monitor is? I can see text below it, so if someone super chats, just please let me know. I'm not trying to ignore you. I really am not. I'll figure out how to get this better. I promise. So the arguments against Trump aren't policy oriented. He's a bad dude. I watched a documentary from Vice last night. It was only half an hour, but it had to do with the black conservative movement. And this host from Vice was a black man who's clearly a Democrat, but I actually thought he did a fair job. And he's kind of at first like raising his eyebrow, like, black conservatives, are these just token blacks that are being hired to make it look like there's a movement? And he comes away and he's like, oh, no, they're not. They are very much conservatives. They're very much tired of the attacks and the vitriol and the disgusting names they're called by the Democrats if they don't vote Democrat. And you can tell he comes away. I don't think the host comes away saying, hey, I'm a Trump supporter now. But I think he comes away saying, hey, these people deserve to be treated with respect that are black conservatives. And that's all you could ask. So I applaud the host, whatever his name was, from this show on Vice, right? But one of the things they talk about when they're like, they get together a group of black liberals and black Trump supporters, and they're just like, well, Trump's so clearly a racist. Trump so clearly made fun of mentally challenged people. Trump so clearly makes fun of all immigrants, and he makes fun of women. And these are all ridiculous statements. Like, we've gone through ad nauseum the making fun of the mentally challenged person. Trump made a motion with his hands to someone who happened to be mentally challenged, but he's made that same motion with his hands to Ted Cruz. He's made it to Jim Acosta. He's made it to all these other people. So it's just a motion he makes when he's making fun of people sometimes. I don't think he was making fun of the guy's illness. And if the idea is, well, you can't make fun of a guy who has some sort of disability, I find that to be a bigoted statement. I try to treat people the same as much as possible. Of course, there's some things you have to do differently. I work with people with developmental disabilities, and I'll tell you right now, what they want more than anything is to be treated as normal as possible. So if you say, oh, there's certain things that I could do with a regular person, but I can't do with you, that's ridiculous. Now, is it good for Trump to be making fun of people like that? That's for you to decide. But I don't think that proves that somehow he's a bigot towards people with disabilities. I mean, it's nonsense. If anything, it's a bad joke. There are liberals all the time that make bad jokes, including politicians. That's fine. I'm not going to say I'm not going to vote for you because of a bad joke, or I think you're immoral because of a bad joke. It's nonsense. And, then the idea that he said S-hole countries. They are S-hole countries. That's true. I come from an S-hole town in rural Pennsylvania, the town I grew up in. I would expect that if the president, I don't care if it's Trump or Obama or whoever, to come through, I'd want them to give an honest answer of what my town looks like. Now, S-hole, that might be a little, like, whoa, it's a little crude. But that's better than the alternative. Oh, what a beautiful town. What a great town. Because if you can't be honest about the status of a town, a country, whatever, how are you going to fix it? And I'm tired of this moral relativism. It's like each country's just equally as good. That's garbage. There are S-hole countries. It's absolutely true. And by the way, that was a private conversation that Trump was having, and there were Democrats that felt that it benefited them politically to release the details of that private conversation. So they were willing to make countries throughout the world jeopardize their relationship with the United States by releasing a private conversation they had with Trump. That was worth them. The jeopardizing the relationship with these countries was worth it to make Trump look bad. So that lets you know where the Democrats stand. But anyways, that's the argument. The same in this Vice documentary I watched. This is the same as last night. It's Trump's a bad dude. Okay, fine. He probably is. He's crude. I mean, one of the things for me is he apparently cheated on his wife. That's not cool. I don't respect that at all. But so did many other people, That's not how I'm voting. So, if that's your big attack against Trump, then how are you going to go and be immoral yourself in various ways? And Mike Bloomberg has all of the same foibles that Trump supposedly has. He said some things that were deemed racially insensitive about stop and frisk. He has NDAs from supposed misappropriate contact he's had with women that worked for him. So how can you say our entire case against Trump's the Billy Bush tape, he said grab him by the P word, so we're going to vote for a billionaire that has NDAs about him, admittedly because he told insensitive joke or had inappropriate contact with women. It's not like the thing where it's like, oh, this guy's got 10 NDAs and this guy has 8, so I'll vote for the guy that has 8. Either it's immoral to have locker room talk or it's not. You don't get to say, well, X amount of locker room talk's all right. It's outrageous. So it just shows you the hypocrisy of these Democrats. They don't even know. They don't even know why they hate Trump. They've been told to hate Trump, and they do. And I told you, I was reading on Twitter, blue checkmark people saying things like this. I had a friend of mine, Carlos, that sent me the tweet. People like, yeah, we know Bloomberg's bad, and he's done basically all the same things Trump's done, but still it's worth voting for him because if Trump wins in 2020, we're all dead. What? From what? You know, and Trump, I think objectively, not just because I like him, I think objectively, to the chagrin of many conservatives, particularly religious conservatives, has been the most pro-LGBT Republican president maybe ever. I mean, he flew the rainbow flag at the convention in 2016. He's made it to where we're basically stopping to do business with countries that outlaw homosexuality. He's appointed the first gay, what's the word I'm looking for? Ambassador. I mean, he's done all this stuff. I was told, credibly, by friends of mine, he's going to put gay people in prison if he wins. That's what I was told. He'll appoint Supreme Court judges that literally will throw gay people in prisons. It couldn't be further from the truth. Yet still, I hear ad nauseum, Trump hates LGBT. What are you talking about? Trump hates black people. The economy's doing better under black people. He's made more gains for black people than Obama ever did. In fact, he even passed the criminal justice reform bill. That was something that the black community has been striving for almost 20 years. They couldn't get it done under Obama. Yet Trump passed it. I remember immediately when Trump was elected. Two former football players, Jim Brown and Ray Lewis, went to the White House to talk about inner city programs. They came out and said, look, he listened to us. We believe he's trying to help. And they were lambasted. Oh, a couple of athletes that don't know anything. Kim Kardashian and Kanye West went and they tried to work with this prison reform bill. They get lambasted. Yet when Obama was talking to Snoop Dogg, that was a great thing. How hard is it? I don't understand why you can't just be honest. There's been presidents I don't like in the past that I thought have done good things. Even Obama. When Obama would give a good speech or do something, I'd say, yeah, that's good. Why is it so hard for the Democrats to be like, okay, we like the criminal justice reform, something we've been after for 20 years and couldn't get done. We like that, but we dislike these other things Trump does. We like the fact that Trump's brought black unemployment to record lows, but we still have problems with other things he does. Go back and watch the State of the Union. They can't even applaud for that stuff. What's up, Milo? Thanks for being here, man. Milo's another one of my great patrons. He's always texting me some really great information and everything. So I haven't got to all of it yet, Milo, obviously. I've been really busy the past couple days, but... So how'd the debate go then, in that regards? They decide to finally go after Bloomberg for this stuff. Great. Oh, now the Democrats' eyes are... Oh, yeah, Bloomberg is everything that we hate about Trump. You know, it just, to me, it's like, you needed Elizabeth Warren to tell you that? You couldn't come up with that on your own? Okay. I don't need Elizabeth Warren to tell me Romney sucks, someone from my party, that he's no different from the Democrats. I figured that out all on my own. So, you know, the big comments they made, who am I cheering for? If I'm as a Trump supporter, let's say Trump's going to lose for whatever reason. I'm not saying he is, but let's say he was going to. Who would I rather see, Bernie or Bloomberg? And despite the fact that I think Bernie's policies would be a disaster for this country, the person in me who seeks righteousness and justice thinks that it's ridiculous that Mike Bloomberg's trying to buy the election and that they're trying to screw Bernie again. Even though Bernie would be an unmitigated disaster for the country. Still, if that's the disaster the country picks, that's better than the corrupt class. Who would I be if I've spent 3 years screaming my head off to my audience here? Well, actually, I've only been on YouTube for 2, but I've been writing longer than that. Who would I be if I'm screaming about corruption and at the same time say, but I hope that the corrupt Bloomberg beats Bernie because Bernie's plans are so disastrous? I can't do that. That'd be unethical and hypocritical on my part. So, in a way, I guess in that battle, I'm cheering for Bernie. And there is something uniquely dangerous about the idea of a presidential candidate straight up buying an election. Say what you will about Donald Trump and his wealth. He didn't spend all that much of his own wealth. In fact, he was outspent 2-1 by the Democrats. So it wasn't like he was doing what Bloomberg's doing. Trump won based on charisma, based on the fact that he was talking about issues like illegal immigration that no one else was talking about. That's how he won. Mike Bloomberg... You saw the debate, Mike Bloomberg have charisma? Is that a word that comes to mind when you say Mike Bloomberg? Thank you, preacher. Would you say that Mike Bloomberg's policies, like he's talking about something you haven't heard other people? What policies? The guy doesn't talk about anything. So, It's just money. I mean, literally, Bloomberg's just running on, I don't like Trump. That's it. And I could put my face in every YouTube video and in every commercial of every television show you're watching. That's it. I could buy a bunch of reporters, supposed journalists, to say that I'm the man. That's it. That's all the guy has. I couldn't tell you any of his policies specifically. I'm sure it's some think tanks writing them up for him right now. But, so yeah, they go after him for that sort of stuff, buying the election. But, I mean, the big thing was the NDA. And look, I don't like Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden, who all attacked Bloomberg. I don't know if Bernie did or not, but certainly Biden and Warren did, for having NDAs. But they're right. Biden and Warren's claims are true, right? Like, and again, remember, I'm not the audience for this debate. Probably you watching me weren't really the audience for this debate. The audience was Democrats, people who are going to vote in the Democratic primaries. I think that one of the things I dislike about the Democratic Party is their appeal to identity politics. You saw it all through this debate. Women this, black, you're talking about climate. Oh, climate affects black people and women the most. Anything. Like, it's so, people act like they're such deep thinkers. Literally, give me anything. Give me any issue. Plastic water bottles. You know, let me tell you something. Did you know that plastic, when they make plastic, it actually pollutes the air around it? And most plastic water bottle companies are actually in inner city neighborhoods. So therefore, if you're drinking out of a plastic water bottle, you're hurting minorities. You literally could give me any issue. And just like that, I could spin it to it. It's nonsense. It's garbage, but okay, forever. So that's, right, like, it's pandering. But if you're the kind of person who's fully invested in the Me Too movement, which again, although I dislike, and it's taking out the cornerstone of our American legal system, which is guilty or innocent until proven guilty, and replacing it with guilty until proven innocent. There have been some good, like, the idea of sexual predators in power getting away with things for too long, something that I think we could all agree on. See Jeffrey Epstein and his connections to, like, everyone in Hollywood and in the media and in politics, etc. Yeah, it's outrageous that people like that get away with this for so long. Agreed. But then, of course, Me Too was weaponized, it was infiltrated, and it was turned into, oh, we could use this politically, or, oh, we could use this for revenge to go after people we don't like that don't agree with us. It's an absolute joke. But if you're someone who really follows Me Too, then how could you stomach supporting a person who has, who knows how many NDAs with women? Now, for those of you who don't know, an NDA stands for non-disclosure agreement. So here's what will happen. If you're in a position of wealth, particularly, you'll have someone make an accusation. This could be a true accusation or it could be a false accusation. But they'll say, hey, I'm going to take you to court and blow this up, and it's going to become a public matter that you pinched my butt, or you said something insulting to me, or you whatever. Physically, sexually harassed or assaulted something, verbally did so, right? It's going to come out in the open. But you're rich, so is it worth it for you to pay me a sum of money? Then I'll sign an agreement saying, I promise I won't talk about it. And if I do talk about it, then you could sue me for the money back. This is what happened with Stormy Daniels, right? Of course, she violated that NDA and extorted Donald Trump. That's what it was, extortion. If it was the shoe on the other foot, if it was Elizabeth Warren that slept with a man, and that man signed an NDA and then said, hey, by the way, I'm going to tell everyone during your presidential campaign that you had sex with me and cheated on your husband, unless you grease the wheels a little more. People would have said, that guy's an extortionist. Elizabeth Warren was just exploring her body, and she has the right to do so. That's what they would have said. But because it was a woman and she did it to Trump, what a hero was Stormy Daniels. I wonder how she's doing today. Now that Avenatti robbed her of all of her money. Not a big fan of the peach water. Switching up to strawberry now. Right. Yeah, no. Ford Nation says, Bloomberg says sugar hurts minorities. That's why he was banning big gulps. Exactly. It's pandering of the highest degree. And you're right. It's like saying they treat them like children. It's the infantilization. You see this all the time. The documentary I just watched on Black conservatives, they're talking about this. I've said it for years. Can you imagine a white community leader? Could you imagine people saying, there, you're white. You're white. That's why you couldn't succeed. The world's out to get you because you're white. We laugh at those people, say that's an outrageous mentality. But that's what we expect of the black community. It's ridiculous. How about this? We just treat people the same no matter what. Isn't that a thought? Jeez. But that makes me a bigot for saying we should treat you as a human being instead of as your skin color. That makes me a bigot. We should treat you based on the content of your character instead of the color of your skin. That's now bigoted. Welcome to 1984. War is peace. Treating people by the content of their character instead of the color of their skin is racism. That's where we're at. The strawberry water is mucho better. So, what we see is, where was I at before I was rambling about water? So anyways, these NDAs then. It's true, Bloomberg admitted. They asked him, like, how many NDAs do you have? He's like, several. He doesn't say how many. And Elizabeth Warren's like, okay, well, if we're going after Trump, how can we, nominate someone who's basically in the same boat? Now, again, regardless of what you think, remember, this is for a Democratic audience that primarily believes, like, in the Me Too movement, and they believe in identity politics, and they believe women are victims. So if you're one of those people, good point. How could you support Bloomberg? And Bloomberg makes one of the most ridiculous claims I've ever heard, and actually Elizabeth Warren and Joe Biden both make the correct point on this. And he says, the women wanted those NDAs. That's probably true because the women wanted large sums of money that Bloomberg was able to give them. But they didn't want to have to be quiet. But he conflates. They wanted the NDA, therefore I won't tell their story because they wanted the NDA, so the story shouldn't be told. So that makes it seem like, oh, these women didn't want the story coming out. And Elizabeth Warren, and particularly Joe Biden, is like, no. That is not what it means. So if that's the case, if one of those women wanted to keep the money and come out and tell the story now, would you release them from the NDA? In other words, what the NDA does, it gives Bloomberg the protection of if someone tells the story, he gets his money back. And so what they're saying is, okay, if they tell their story. And Bloomberg won't say that. He's like, no, they wanted it to be quiet. That's not true. That's not how that works. Think about it. I don't care if you're telling the truth or not. You are sexually harassed, or you claim you're sexually harassed, regardless if you're telling the truth or not. You are going to go public with this claim and maybe file a lawsuit, but instead you're basically settling out of court early. Like, here's a huge sum of money. Just don't say anything. Particularly if this happened to you, you'd still want to speak out, but you value that money. Maybe you're greedy. Maybe you have a family and that money will help take care of your family. And so it's a greater good. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But that money's to shut you up. You're not like, oh, thank God I didn't want to tell the story anyways. That's outrageous. And everybody knows it. But Bloomberg's counting on he could buy enough publicity. He could buy enough ignorance that people won't report this story, particularly if he makes it out of the primary. Because it doesn't matter. You could have 50 women come out and say Mike Bloomberg raped me. Credibly, they could give dates. They could give videos. And the media would cover for Mike Bloomberg if it's Bloomberg versus Trump. Certainly they would. Those stories wouldn't come out. Don't believe me? How much dirt did we have on Epstein going into the 2016 election? But we've been told, well, we couldn't talk about that because he was friends with the Clintons. Didn't want to jeopardize Hillary Clinton's campaign. So it'd be the same thing with Bloomberg. So he's basically like, yeah, just shut up. I just got to make it through this primary. And the people going after him are correctly like, dude, if we have these criticisms about Trump, why shouldn't they apply to you? And there's no good answer. And mark my words, on one hand, I applaud Bernie and Elizabeth Warren for this. Now, does that mean that just because there was an NDA, Bloomberg's guilty? No. But that's what they believe. That's what their voters believe. So, in the interest of transparency to the voters, okay, voters, if you believe #BelieveAllWomen and Bloomberg has all these NDAs, how do you justify that? And if you say, well, I don't care, Trump's bad, fair enough. Then stop acting like you're a moral person. You're not. You're willing to accept what you consider immorality if it's beating your opponent. So let's stop with the fake morality. That's all I ask. So Bloomberg's answer is crap. But although I applaud Bernie and Warren, mark my words. And this was the most successful attack on Bloomberg. And I think Bloomberg was devastated. I think Bloomberg looked like a guy who was regretting getting into this. He was just like, he stammered. He didn't sound confident. He didn't sound good. He didn't have all of the people he buys and pays to spread how great he is around him. He was up there alone. And when you have people spread how awesome you are, your entourage, for 40 plus years, it's really tough to be on your own. And I think he realized that. But does that mean he's out of the race? Nope. $40 billion could buy an absolute lot of votes. He could buy a lot of praise. So let's see. Just has to dish out a little more money and everything will go away. And that's my criticism of Biden and Warren. If Bloomberg would end up winning the nomination, despite their supposed feelings on his non-disclosure agreements, they wouldn't say a word about it when he was running against Trump. All of a sudden, Bloomberg would be a moral man. Bloomberg's a man who respects women. That's what Elizabeth Warren will be saying. That's what Joe Biden will be saying. But we have to take them as serious that they actually care about this stuff. It's an absolute joke. Remember, person after person we said, I triggered you, preacher, sorry. Person after person we saw say, hashtag believe all women in the Kavanaugh situation at the exact same time. Former second in command of the Democratic Party, Keith Ellison, was credibly accused by his wife. All of the evidence was far tighter than any of the cases against Kavanaugh, yet the Democrats didn't care. They didn't say stop him for running for Attorney General of Minnesota, I think. He can't run until we get to the bottom. They didn't say that, did they? That's what they said about Kavanaugh. Well, just resign and then we'll resolve it. With Ellison, it was like, okay, what about Ellison? Well, I mean, he's a black man and a Democrat, so we're gonna let him run. We're gonna let him run. Believe all women, though. What's up, Meduz? Thanks for being here. What's going on? Just me rambling about the debate. In a very coherent, articulate manner, I would like to think. And my dog's barking as the neighbor kids get off the bus. So that attack was effective. However, there was also an attack from Bloomberg on Bernie that was absolutely incredible. And maybe I'll spend the rest of the show talking about this because it's something I harp on all of the time. And it's the faux morality and the hypocrisy of socialism. And, Bloomberg put it quite succinctly. Isn't it strange that the top socialist in the country is a billionaire with 3 houses? What's up, Fuzz? Hey, I'm doing a video. I'll shut this door, though. I just had it open because the dogs were here. My sister came home. Her car blew up today, so we have to fuel pump, I think. I'll be on a bit. And go ahead and put the TV on. It's not going to bother anyone. Yeah, just a fuel pump with the car. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Meduz. They are the funniest. I laughed the whole way through that debate. Where was I? Yeah, Bloomberg says our premier socialist in the United States. Three houses and a millionaire. And Bernie's answer shows how disconnected he is. Now, let me first say, one of the big things that everyone's pointing out is Bloomberg calls Bernie a communist, and the crowd groans, and Bernie and Elizabeth are like, no, it's not true that communism... Let me give them the benefit of the doubt. I don't think they were saying it's not true that communism wouldn't work. In other words, they're defending communism. I think they were saying it's not true that we are communist. That's how I took it. Now, it's debatable. They're certainly on the road to communism. But I think some people were taking it as, this is an admission by them they are communist and that communism's good and it will work. I don't think that's what they were saying. I think that they would say, we're not communist. Now, maybe they are, but I don't think they're going to publicly admit to being communist. I don't gamble on the election, it does. The attack, though, about Bernie having the houses, Bernie's response it blows my mind. And let me just say, I have this debate with Bernie supporters all the time. And they're right there with Bernie. They don't care about the obvious hypocrisy. They don't care at all. At all. And it blows my mind that I just don't get it. I live by a simple motto. If you're going to recommend or demand people act in a certain way, the least you could do is also follow your same rule. That's it. So if you're going to tell me, man, hey, man, it's bad to eat junk food after 8 o'clock, and you're munching on a Snickers at 9:30, I'm like, what? You know, it's wasteful. Your car, your SUV, that's wasteful on gas as you fly in your private jet. What? Like, you don't have some moral superiority over me. Or, you know, it's bad to catcall women as you have NDAs because you've illegally groped women. Like, you don't get to morally judge me for things that you do worse. Bernie Sanders making moral judgments about people accumulating money and, you know, their stance on illegal immigration while he lives in gated communities, or his stance on carbon footprints while he flies in private jets, or, you know, his stance on making money while I'm living paycheck to paycheck and this guy's a multimillionaire. His stance on guns while he has armed guards. I mean, it's garbage. And so his defense when Bloomberg says, yeah, the biggest socialist in our country is a millionaire with 3 houses. He says, let's see if I can do a Bernie voice. He says, yeah, of course I have 3 houses. I need 1 house in Washington, D.C. I live in D.C. I have a house in Vermont and in Bloomfield, and I also have a summer camp. A summer camp? $1 million lake house? That's what you call a summer camp? We got a camper that we're working on because it's got leaks and the toilet doesn't work alongside a river. That's a summer camp. I wish that I had a summer camp that was $1 million lake house. Wouldn't that be a nice, hey, you know, it's nothing. It's just a summer camp. And Bernie acts like he's well entitled to those things. Now, this is the same Bernie that I watched in a debate with Ted Cruz on healthcare. I watched a woman stand up, and the woman said, I'm a small business owner, and I can't afford to provide healthcare for the people that work with me. After the end of the year, I pay them like whatever I pay them, like $40,000 a year. I actually take home less than that. I'm taking home I'm barely breaking even with my business. How can I afford to provide healthcare on top of the wages that I provide? And Bernie's like, hey, you're a business owner, pay up. See, that woman was greedy for taking home $20,000 a year. But Bernie having his lake house, not greedy at all. Bernie having his millions, not greedy at all. Remember, just 3-4 years ago, Bernie was telling you that millionaires and billionaires were immoral. And then Bernie became a millionaire. And he said, I mean, billionaires are immoral. I mean, he's not saying it's just not strategic for the country. Maybe then I could live with it. He's literally saying accumulating large sums of wealth is immoral. While he's accumulated large sums of wealth, he is the 1%. He might not be as high up in the 1% as Bloomberg or as Trump. But compared to me, him looking at Bloomberg is like me looking at him. Why is it okay for him to say, okay, where I'm at, millions of dollars, 3 houses, private jet flights, first class everywhere I go? That's perfectly reasonable. Him to be on that plateau is perfectly, and me way down here to look up and say, hey man, you got way too much. Why don't you spread it around people in my community? Huh? Oh, no, it's moral for him to have that. But the people above him, that's immoral. What do I say on this channel all the time? It's always, the socialist is, everybody with 1 more penny than me is immoral. Oh, my wealth's totally moral. Now say what you will about Bloomberg, and he's disgusting, of course. But he's created jobs. He has a news network. He's had other businesses create a job. Has Bernie ever created a job? Other than running for office and writing a book, what has Bernie done? He's made a livelihood out of your tax dollars paying his salary. That's what he's done. Yet he's totally morally justified, he says. And his supporters go, well, he wrote a book. So what? Business owners build a business, and you say they're not entitled to their profits. And even if that's your stance, would Bernie's book have sold like it did if he wasn't in the public eye because he was being paid by your tax dollars for generations? Of course not. If he was just a guy on a bench who's never had a job and was homeless and he wrote the same book that he wrote now, do you think it would have sold? Do you think he'd have made millions of dollars? No. The guy got wealthy off of our tax dollars. That's it. And then he acts like people that built their own businesses are immoral for having wealth. Again, understand the difference between saying, I don't think it's good for the country and the way it functions to have people accumulate billions. That's one thing. I disagree with that statement, but that's okay. But it's another thing to say it's immoral, while you yourself are hoarding huge sums of money. Just because Bernie hangs out with a crowd that all has about the same amount of money as him or more doesn't mean that the vast majority of the rest of the country is nowhere near the level of wealth that Bernie has. It's hypocritical. Now, the argument that and I see this over and over. In fact, you see this one terrible cartoon meme that people put out, and it's a guy carrying sticks, and he's like, hey, I think that we should try to solve some of the ills in our government, in our country, in our society. And then it's a guy pointing at him, laughing, going, you think there's a problem with society, yet you live in society. You're a hypocrite. That's not what's going on. The analogy doesn't apply. Right? The guy who's criticizing capitalism, who's making $40,000 a year, and he's living very reasonably, or the woman or whatever, that's one thing, if you want to speak on the morality of capitalism. It's another thing to be one of the richest people in the history of the world, complaining that the system that got you rich is immoral, and everyone who's benefited from that system in a big way is immoral, yet saying, but I deserve to keep all of my wealth. It's not a matter of morality. You can't legislate morality through threat of force. Government taxation is through threat of force. Don't pay your taxes, go to jail. That's threat of force. That's not morality. You don't say, hey, you know what? I'm a really moral person. You want to know why? Because I was going to rob that bank, but now that I know it's illegal, I'm not going to rob the bank. Aren't I a great person? Well, no. You could make a moral argument if it was, I wouldn't rob the bank even if it was legal. I wouldn't rob. Okay, that's a morality claim. If you had the option and there was no force applied against you, how would you act? We know how Bernie would act. Bernie's a millionaire. Now, I say this all the time when I see these high and mighty socialists. I come from rural Pennsylvania. I know tons of people that can't afford health care. Tons of them. Most of them are still drinking at the bar every weekend. But hey, you say it's not fair for us to judge them for their life decisions. So, I'll give you a list, Bernie, of people that don't have health care around my life. And let's say you need $100,000 a year to survive. You keep that $100,000, and then the rest of it, why don't you give to my friends that don't have health care? Oh, no, not you. Not you. You can't personally make that choice. Well, then it's not a question of morality. And I'm not saying, by the way, that you're immoral if you're not giving those people money for healthcare. I'm not. Even if I was in a position where I had more money, I wouldn't be giving those people healthcare. Now, I am charitable in some ways. I'm not going to come on here and tell you about them. Charity isn't bragging about your charity. So for all sakes and purposes, we'll assume I don't give any to charity. Because I'm not trying to get suck-up points. But nonetheless, I'm not claiming to be some moral arbiter like Bernie Sanders, like the socialists. And it's every issue they talk about. It's always couched in morality. Immigration. Oh, kids in cages. Oh, you're going to be so immoral to these illegals. Yet you, Bernie, as the video I just did last week showed, please check it out. He says, oh, we need illegal immigrants because they work cheap and it makes our produce cheap. That's literally the argument for slavery. Oh, well, they come from S-hole countries, literally. Like, let me give you a little story. Listen, these people in some of these African nations, some of these like Caribbean isles, it's insane there. There are people murdering each other, people starving, disease, like life expectancy, sometimes 20s, 30s. Terrible, hell on earth conditions. So what I'm proposing is let's send some boats over there, grab some of these people. We'll bring them back. We'll put them in houses, give them 3 square meals a day. We're not going to pay them. And we'll make sure that they stay in these communities because we know best for them. But they get 3 meals a day. And we'll give them a career, like farming, like, picking cotton, we'll say. And we'll have them pick cotton, and they stay in these buildings, and they pick cotton, and we give them food, and they get to stay, like, with their family and stuff. And, yeah, they have to listen to us so they learn discipline and education. But it's a great deal because where they came from is a hellhole. That's slavery. That's what Bernie and the socialists are telling you about illegal immigration right now. Oh, they come from these crappy places. They're fleeing the political persecution in the areas they're fleeing so bad. So we should welcome them into our country. And by the way, they're doing jobs that Americans won't do. And if we had to pay Americans the wages that these farmers or that these people, the Americans want to work on these farms, the price of your produce would go through the roof. So actually, it spurs Joe Biden just said this the other day. Our economy would collapse without illegal immigrants being the backbone of it. That's literally the argument for slavery. It's okay to pay these people pennies on the dollar because it helps our economy move. One, it's a lie. But second, that's your argument and you're going to claim to be moral? That's literally the argument that, like, DiCaprio's character on Django Unchained made. And they sit there with this faux morality. They live in gated communities while they tell you have to do more. I mean, it's insanity. Now, why does this matter? Well, just because he's living one way, just because he's flying on a private jet doesn't mean blah, blah, blah. But he's not willing to do it. And the fact that he's not willing to do it shows me that he and his kind will find loopholes if the government says they're forced to do it. If they really cared about the poor, I got to listen to Hollywood talk about how bleeding heart they have and how terrible Trump is and the Republicans and we should be taxed more. It's ridiculous that I'm not taxed more. Meanwhile, they live in a city where there's fecal matter and hypodermic needles all over the place, record homeless population, and what are they doing? Nothing. They're all living high on the hog. Give up your wealth, then talk to us. Oh, I can't give up my wealth. I'm willing to be taxed more. Oh, so you're willing to give a little fraction more of your wealth as long as other people are forced to give up their wealth. That's not morality. You're only willing to give more if you're forced to give more. Saying, yeah, but I'm voting to force myself to give more doesn't make you moral. That means you weigh other people being forced to pay more than you weigh the homeless people having shelter now. Because you have every ability, hey, George Clooney, that particular homeless guy you see right there, you have the money to put him in a home. You do. It's your choice. Your choice is, I'm going to walk over him. But then I'm going to say that I'm moral and that we should give more money to the homeless. Then give it. Bernie Sanders, remember the big bombshell? Rachel Maddow found one of years of Donald Trump's tax returns. And so they looked at it, and Trump paid something like a 24% tax ratio. Bernie Sanders the same year had the lowest of any of the politicians they looked at like 16%. So Bernie took every tax loophole he could get. But wait a minute, I thought Bernie wanted to pay more in taxes. Do as I say, not as I do. And listen, it's more than just the hypocrisy. This guy wants to be in charge of a government in unprecedented scope and power in the United States. In other words, he wants to massively expand the power and ability of the federal government, the power and size, right? Massively expand it. That's what he wants to do. And he's a guy who's unwilling to live by what he's prescribing that you should have to live to. Do you want a hypocrite like that that's going to make excuses for, oh, well, it's okay for me to do it? Thanks, preacher. Now, here's another thing, right? So that was the two big moments of the debate. There were more. I'm not going to hit them all. Here's one. Speaking of Denmark. Right. Let me say this real quick, Ford Nation. On that note, Ford Nation says it's easy for celebrities and politicians, basically people with power and wealth, to say everybody should give more. Because to them, it's just a little bit more. I saw Adam Carolla, who's fantastic. Adam Carolla is one of my favorite people. He's got a podcast, comedian, hilarious. He's lived in California his whole life, and he did this bit with Tucker Carlson the other day. I saw was awesome, and he's talking about why basically there's a two-tier legal system there, where if you're in the middle class, you're basically screwed, but if you're incredibly rich or incredibly poor, you get away with whatever you want. And so he talks about this one street in particular. He's like, Well, he starts off with, like, you need a permit for everything. So he's telling his story. He's like, yeah, the garage we're filming in right now, I thought about renting out as kind of commercial property to see if a business or something wanted to come in here. He's like, just to start the process, I have to get a surveyor to come in to see, hypothetically, if this would be too much of a burden on street traffic in the street. That was going to cost him like $18,000. Now, that's not a permit that says, okay, now you can start the next step. That is, you have to pay $18,000 just at the beginning to see if you're even allowed to start. Then if they say, okay, you can't, then you have to pay for more permits. He says they'll get you for anything if your license plate's not properly placed on the front of your car, all of this crap, right? So he's like, there's this street where on one side's all of these illegals or poor people or homeless, and they're all selling stuff from carts without a permit. If you try to sell something without a permit, they'll fine you. But these people, the police just let them go. On the other side of the street is the police sitting with radar guns, busting soccer moms for like going 2 miles an hour over the speed limit, or don't having their license plate placed in the exact correct spot. And he's like, it's because you can't squeeze blood out of a turnip. In other words, the city of LA, they don't care at all about the homeless because they can't find the homeless and make money. They don't care about the poor because they can't find them and make money. So they let the poor run amok. The middle class, the fines harm you. They're big fines. The fees, the permits, all of that stuff harms you. You're working your 9 to 5. You get screwed over. Do you think Meryl Streep cares? You think she cares if she gets a $500 fine? Of course not. It's easy for the politicians. It's easy for the wealthy. They don't care. Sure, here's a check and an autograph to go with it. There you go. I couldn't afford that. Average people couldn't, but that's what they want, a feudalist society. They want to get rid of the middle class. I say it all the time. That's the globalist dream. You think they care if we get rid of fossil fuels? You think the wealthy care? They don't care. So what? Maybe they pay double for their energy costs a year. So what? What do they care? They're incredibly wealthy. But what about me and you that are living paycheck to paycheck? Well, we're screwed. Who cares about us? But don't worry. We can also always quit our jobs and live off welfare. They'll give us free bread and circuses. Of course, Harmony, they get all this money. And they don't do anything to help the homeless. And the more money they spend, the worse it becomes. Thank you, Pasty Gangsta. Oh, am I getting lemons? Thank you if people are donating lemons. So if you're on DLive and give me lemons, I guess that means I get monies. And then on YouTube, you can super chat, and I also get monies. Yay. Thank you for anyone giving monies. Now, all the money's given, really, I do appreciate it. Goes right back into the channel. The very next thing I'm going to do with money is to buy a subscription to make my live streams podcast format. So then you can listen to the wonderful sounds of my voice while you're in the car or at work. Wouldn't that be amazing? Maybe I'll do some soothing exercises for everyone. Stretch out every muscle in your body. Feel the tips of your fingers and toes as your eyes grow heavy. What do you think? Maybe I have a calling in that. Yeah, I'm on DLive. It's just Man, that's stupid. The thing in the description might suck. That link might have went bad. It's just capital R. I'll type it out so everyone can see it. Here's my DLive account. It's just Rob Noor with the R on the end capitalized. I don't know if that DLive link works, Harmony, but I appreciate it. Oh, Preacher got me a Ninjagini. Thank you. If you could get me, instead of a Ninjagini next time, you can get me, I don't care, a Ford Tempo or something with a working wheel bearing. Doesn't have to be a Lambo. Or a Ninja, I guess, right? But thank you all. So what was I going to talk about then? Some other things. Okay, so the idea of Denmark, right? And you hear socialists say this all the time. Oh, what about the Scandinavian countries? They're so great. One, they're capitalists. Now, let's be honest, though. It is a true statement, and I think Bloomberg said this. This is absolutely true. We're not a purely capitalist country. We definitely have a mix of capitalism and socialism. We have social safety nets, things like that. We're definitely, anytime you're taking money from people and redistributing it, that's a socialist program. Now, we're not totally socialist. We're also not totally capitalist. We're a mix. We tend to be more towards capitalism than somewhere like Denmark. something like Scandinavia. Fair enough. We can have that discussion, right? But I always think it's funny when we talk about, you hear these socialists say, we just want a system set up like the UK or Canada, or we want a system set up like Finland or Scandinavia. What they don't tell you is that, for starters, why is it that we accept some of the policies, we just accept that as moral? What they do is moral. The difference is that Canada and the UK and Finland and all these Scandinavian countries, they're more moral than the United States. They recognize that healthcare is a human right. And that's the moral thing to do. So we should listen to our moral betters and start these systems. Yet each of those countries also have stricter border controls. Why is it that we have to look at the rest of the world when it comes to healthcare, but not when it comes to control of our border? Isn't that strange? Don't believe me? Go ahead. Walk into Denmark and tell them you want in their healthcare system. See how that goes for you. Why don't you head on up to Canada and say, I'd like some free healthcare service. See where that gets you. Not very far, because they care. Even Trudeau's came out and said it. I said it before. In fact, next time I do a live stream, I'll show you something I wrote in 2017. I solved the immigration crisis, right? We keep getting told Canada's this great, progressive, awesome place, right? And illegal immigration, the same people that tell us that say illegal immigration, they're a benefit to our country. They're awesome. They make everything better. So I propose that we just take 11 to 27 million illegals. We don't know how many. Let's get them all, round them up, send them to Canada. Now, according to all the progressives, illegal immigrants make your country better. So we've just shared a great privilege and strength with Canada. They'll take them with they're moral. Canada's more moral than us. They'll take all of those illegals, 11 million, we'll say. They'll take them all. It's a benefit to Canada, right? Then why is it that Canada's releasing statements saying, well, we're kind of filled up. We can't take any more at this time. Isn't that weird? Almost like everything you've been told about more illegals and Canada being more moral than us is a lie. Okay, preacher, I will do that. Something about a chest. I don't know anything about that, but that's on DLive. I will do that before I leave. That's like, so when we're talking about, and think about it, it just makes sense. Everybody wants to confuse you because on a national scale with our economics, we deal in fiat currency. We got quantitative easing. We got, repealing things. We have fractional reserve banking. All of this stuff sounds very confusing, and it is. And it's worth getting in and talking about exactly what all of these things mean. But just know this on the base level. What they're doing is making it intentionally confusing so they can screw the average person out of money. That's what it's always been about. That's what it continues to be about, right? It's a shell game. Well, we move it here and 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 here. Oh, you lost your money. Good game, though. That's what it is. Yeah, before I leave, I'll give that chess out. I promise. Just look at it this way. Let's simplify economics. We have a big country, right? And the government's the head of the country, theoretically. We all vote. Just imagine it's like your house. Let's say you have a wife and kids, or if you're a woman, you have a husband or a wife or whatever. I don't care. I'm not here to judge. As long as you're consenting adults. But you got a family, right? And you're looking out for the interests of your family. Not only does that make sense, but it's also the moral thing to do. We should have personal responsibility that comes with taking care of ourselves first, and the logical extension of that's our family. Then maybe our extended family, then our community, then maybe a greater area like our state, then our nation, etc. That should be, if we all focus on improving ourselves, then that's what makes a better country. That's what the founding fathers understood. The ideas of personal responsibility and personal freedom. It's great. The system works great. Now, does that mean everyone succeeds? No. Does that mean that you as an individual, if you have excess, shouldn't have the right to be charitable and help those that didn't succeed? Of course not. But you shouldn't be forced. Anyways, let's say, you have $50,000 a year. You make it your job, and you have 2 kids and a wife. We'll say you could be a man or a woman. I don't care in this scenario. You got a spouse and 2 kids. How's that sound? Your first obligation should be to provide housing, food, care for that family. You would never say, I got 50,000. It's incumbent upon me to spread this out equally amongst all the people in my community. My neighbors aren't doing so well this year, so I'm going to give my neighbors half of this. That's fine if you have excess. If you meet all of your family's needs and it only costs $25,000, so you have this extra $25,000, and you say, look, instead of going on this great vacation we were going to go on, we're going to give that money, that excess money we had, to our neighbors. But it's not a moral thing or even an intelligent thing for you to say, my family's starving or we can't afford to pay my mortgage, but I'm going to pay my neighbor's mortgage. That makes no sense. There is a limit to how charitable you could be. The same is true of our government. You can't just give free health care if it ends up meaning that the people that are working can no longer afford to take care of their own. In other words, in a socialist system, if you're allowing so many people that aren't contributing to the money that's going to be divvied out to everyone, if you leave the pool of people that aren't contributing to grow so big, then the people that are paying in no longer get a benefit back that's worth them paying in. The people that work and that are contributing, first and foremost, deserve to have them and their families taken care of. If they pay in and there's so many people not paying in that it no longer is sufficiently taking care of them and their family, then it becomes immoral. That's what we're talking about. We have 11 million to 27 million illegal people. There is not enough healthcare service to go around. There's not enough money to be able to pay for this stuff. We're going to have to just print money to do it. Bernie can't tell you how much it's going to cost. So the morality argument is turned on its head. It is immoral to then force money, and they admit, what did he say? Families that make, or people that make over $26,000 will have to pay more. This is a huge admission. Bernie admitted that in the debate. Now, $26,000, that's, I mean, you could damn near be making minimum wage and make $26,000 a year, so your taxes will go up. He admits that. Now, this is just like Obamacare. I told my friends when I was in college about Obamacare. I had friends that were my age. We're all like in our mid-20s. And they're like, yeah, about time. I'm going to get free healthcare. This is awesome. And I was like, dude, you're not going to get free healthcare. It's going to cost you. Yeah, it will. And I said, no. Let me explain how this will work, right? See, once more, they couch it in this morality argument, but then the economics argument they make proves that the morality argument is garbage. So these were the two arguments given for Obamacare. One, it is immoral to not provide healthcare. Healthcare is a right, and it's immoral to not provide healthcare from each and every person. And second, people are basically just going into ERs and stuff and not paying, and that's driving up the cost for everyone else. Well, the second argument basically disproves the first one. If people are going and getting healthcare and not paying, then the idea of, oh, we live in this crazy immoral system where people can't get healthcare is a lie. Now, there are some things that they can't get, but in general, if you're in dire need of emergency care, you could get it. What they're really upset about is you have different pools of people. You have people that are using healthcare and are paying for healthcare. Then you have people that are using healthcare but are not paying for healthcare. And then you have a third group of people, those that are not using healthcare and are not paying for healthcare. And so the people using healthcare and paying for it have to pay more because the people using it and not paying aren't paying. So someone's got to pay for that group, and it's the people, right? Think about it. So the hospital's like, we want paid. Well, you can't make the guy who never came in the hospital pay. So the guy that comes in with the service, you say, guess what? You're going to pay double because the next guy that walks in isn't going to pay. So you pay double. And the person paying's pissed. They're like, that's not fair. But they can't say, well, the person not paying hit the bricks. They can't say that. So they came up with this devilish idea. They said, we'll couch it in the idea of morality. We don't want to pay anymore for these people that are using the service and not paying. So instead of us paying, we'll make the people not using healthcare pay for the people that are using it. That's the plan. So you take the burden, these people on the top, right? They're using and paying. These people in the middle, they're using and not paying. And these people on the bottom are not using and not paying. So these people said, we'll have our cost by making people not using the service pay for the service. Now, let me ask you this. What group of people predominantly don't use healthcare services? What group would that be? What group, on average, of course, there's exceptions to every rule, but on average, what group is it that tends to use healthcare more. Let me put it this way. The older you get, are you using healthcare more or less on average? More. So who was this a tax against? It was a tax on the young. Predominantly. It was a tax on the healthy. And so I told my friends in college, I said, no, dude, you're going to pay. You're definitely going to pay. Because when's the last time you've been to the hospital? Oh, 8, 9 years? Yeah, guess what? Now you're going to have to pay. No, it's free. I said, okay, we'll see. And then I run into those people 3, 4 years later. No, I don't even have health care. And when tax time came, I had to have a penalty. I had to pay the penalty because I didn't have health care. Yep. Told you. How do you think Bernie's plan's going to work? If you make more than $26,000, your taxes go up. Bernie says, yes, but your premiums will go down. Well, what if you're someone who's healthy and you don't pay premiums? Well, you lose. But at the same time, Bernie's arguing that young people are unfairly being harmed by the economy. So what's he want to do? Put more of an economic burden on young people. By the way, all this money that we're going to have to print to pay for Bernie's $100 trillion worth of plans, you think Bernie's generation is going to pay that money back? No, it'll be young people and their kids. But again, it's couched in terms of morality. Now, furthermore, I don't have the article in front of me because I was doing stuff today. Thanks, you like the Bernie. I'm working on a new character, by the way. I got all kinds of lame jokes. Like, here, let me show you. I got some plants here. Some succulents. You see my succulents? All right. I don't know if you're a fan of old cinema, but I'm a fan of old cinema. And I decided to name these after the Marx Brothers. And so we have Groucho Marx, and here's Gummo Marx there. And you can hardly see him. He's hiding here. But this guy here, can you see him? Yeah, there's this guy. That's Zeppo Marx. And then this guy's Chico Marx. And then this guy here, this little thin wimpy guy, he's Bernie Sanders. The Marx Brothers. You get it? I was pleased with that joke. My wife was like, dude, how come every Hollywood reference you have is from 100 years ago? The Marx Brothers were good. Here's a character I'm working on, by the way. It's, I don't know, I'm a fan of older wrestling, so I'm working on, everybody knows Hulk Hogan, so I'm working on Bernie Sanders, Bernie Mania, right? Listen here, brother. All my little Bernie maniacs out there want to get in these bread lines, brother. And the 1%'s going to play for those bread lines. It's time for free healthcare for everyone. And we'll just print money until the printing presses run out. All the little Bernie maniacs out there are ready for Bernie to take over and put people in gulags that disagree with them. And then we need to, I am a real communist. Fight for the rights of the proletariat. Yeah, I'm garbage. That's me. Maybe that'll be a segment I do every week. My wife won't let me shave into just the goatee and then get the skullet with the blonde, the red boa, all the little Bernie maniacs out there, I'm an idiot. But, it's nonsense. I don't see how people can't see through this. Was there any issue that they talked about in that debate that wasn't solved by just giving money to it? Everything. Oh, man, we're going to get rid of fossil fuels. Well, what about the people that are like coal workers? Yeah, we'll guarantee them money, guarantee them jobs. Okay, what about climate change? Man, well, just money. Just money for it. Illegal immigrants. Money. What about, mothers with daycare? Money. We'll give them free daycare. Like, who couldn't run? How hard, go ahead, someone throw out a problem on the board. Maybe a problem you've had in your everyday life, or a hypothetical problem you can come up with. Milo says, sorry to the mods. Fair point, Milo. Here's what we should do. Let's give them government money. Government money. It's tidy here. Who knows? We'll start a commission with government money. I got to take the show on the road. We'll have the government pay me for it, nation. That's it. That's all they say. You could train a tenure. Greta Thunberg could run this party. we've realized that there's a bunch of very complicated problems in this country, and we've decided we're going to solve them all. What we're going to do is give them money. Yeah, it's money. That's it, money. Oh, and by the way, it's immoral to not give them money. So, and that's one thing Buttigieg said that I thought was actually effective, where he's like, look, you act like if we're not as extreme and left-wing as you, Bernie, then somehow we're the status quo, part of the problem. Like, there's truth to that. You don't have to be an insane person. Like I don't begrudge, like, Bernie speaking to an audience. And that's something that if you're a Trump supporter or you're conservative, you'll ignore at your own peril. There is populism on the left, and Bernie is popular amongst those people. His constituents, like young people and people like, they have reason to have grief. The economy does suck for them. Universities are terrible for them. The indentured servitude they get for the almost no skills. Just like, why does no one talk about the universities and the people running them being the bad guys? We talk about can you believe how much education costs? Can you believe it? I mean, it's crazy. We need to pay for everyone to have access to education. What about the people that are charging so much? The administrators that are getting insanely rich. No one speaks a word about them, do they? We'll talk about the healthcare industry, no problem, because it's politically popular to bash them, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. Pharmaceuticals, health insurance, sure, we can bash all them. But at the same time, when we're talking about the exorbitant cost of education, no one bashes the administrators running our higher education, do they? The quality of the service that higher education is providing has declined immensely over the past 30 years, yet the cost has gone up exponentially. How do you explain that? Well, because the government got guaranteed in student loans. So now it's just free. They're awash in free money. What, the government's going to guarantee all these students money? And they can't even declare bankruptcy to get out of their student loans? Yeah, sure, we'll take it. We'll jack up tuition 3 times as much this year. Who cares? And then the Democrats are like, oh, can you believe how much these kids have to pay? But they don't look at the people charging them. You know what we'll do? We'll punish those damn administrators on college campuses. We'll show them what we'll do. Bernie, take the wheel here. What's going on? Okay, listen here, brother. What we're going to do is force all Americans to pay for higher education for every student that wants to go. That'll show these corrupt administrators. Now they'll make 10 times more money. Yeah, makes sense, Bernie. Are you kidding me? How about this? Get him out. How about the government, instead of giving these corrupt SOBs more money, starts calling them out? I'm not saying throw them in jail. Just be like, you know what? We're no longer going to give financial aid that goes to any university that's tuition is higher than this mark. You can charge what you want. We're not getting involved in the free market. We're just going to say we think it's immoral to force taxpayers to pay so far above fair market price for this service. So, community colleges and stuff that charge less, sure, we'll give you. Well, Milo says no one wants free education because you'll make them aware of all the lies. Well, that's just it. It's not education. It's free indoctrination. Most of our universities aren't involved in the business of education. They're involved in the business of making huge sums of money and then indoctrinating people, their students, to a political philosophy that will continue to allow the people running the universities to make large sums of money. Problem is, they went too far, didn't they? They radicalized too many people too fast. Now they're eating their own. Now, my buddy Tom, who's running my campaign, I haven't talked to him about this, but I saw his comment in my YouTube video about Caitlin Bennett getting mobbed. And I said, defund the universities. And he says that makes no sense. The universities aren't the ones that should be punished. It should be the kids that are in the mob. I disagree. I don't mind. I'm not saying anytime a mob acts out in a university that they should be defunded. What I'm saying is if the university doesn't take it serious or they cover for the mob, then they should no longer get money. And here's why. Let's say that you have a police department in a town and your tax dollars go to fund that police department. Now let's say a black man comes in because he's heard that the town's racist and a mob of angry white racists surround the black person and they spit on him and they throw drinks at him and they won't leave him escape in his truck and they attack the truck when he's leaving, just like they did to Caitlin Bennett. Then the police of that town come out and release a statement that says, well, actually, it's that black guy's fault for not informing us he was coming. And by the way, it was just one cup of water splash. So next time, black guy, make sure you call us before you come. Now, do you think we should fund that police department? I don't. I don't think my money should be going to fund a public service that is encouraging bigotry. And that's exactly what our universities are doing. So no, we should not fund universities that do this. Now, had the university came out and said this is appalling, we're going to make sure this doesn't happen again, we'll extend an invitation to Caitlin Bennett. She's welcome on our campus at any time. We might not agree with her positions, but we will make sure that we do our best that this type of thing doesn't happen again. I would say, okay, that's reasonable. Fair enough. But that's not what they did, is it? Most teachers are Democrats. One of my daughter's teachers is married to an ICE agent and supports Trump. Yeah, I mean, most teachers are Democrats. And you go read Jonathan Haidt. He started something called Heterodox Academy. Jonathan Haidt's a liberal, and he's working primarily with liberals, believe it or not. But if you're a professor, it's an organization you could join called Heterodox Academy. And what he does is he goes around and basically does studies of faculty and administrators on campuses and students to see where they lean politically and philosophically. And what he's found is in the past, ever since basically the social media generation, we've seen an exponential increase in the amount of far left-wing radicals, both at the administration, the faculty, and the student level on college campuses. So it used to be like 20, 30 years ago, like 80% of your faculty was left-leaning and 20% was right-leaning. Centrist or right-leaning. Now in many universities, it's like 95% left-leaning and 5% not. And of those 95%, it's not like they're moderate leftists. They're becoming further and further extremists, like outright communist, saying we need censorship of right-wing ideas. If you go back to the great like universities of the past, like even if you're going back to like schools way back in the days of the Greeks, they encouraged open debate, dialogue, disagreement. Now it's the exact opposite. They encourage indoctrination. They encourage safe spaces. They encourage segregation based on race. Like when your university is now defending the suggestions of the Ku Klux Klan that we should have black-only spaces, you might have gone off the rails, and your tax dollars are paying for it. Bernie Sanders wants to give free education to more people, but that's more indoctrination. Just like Klobuchar wants to give free daycare, right? What's that about? More government control over your children. It's not enough that they're in school how many hours a day being brainwashed. And say what you will about the establishment Democratic Party, but their Saul Alinsky tactics are effective. While Republicans were mired in how do we win the next election, the Democrats were playing for keeps. They weren't saying how do we win the next election. They were saying how do we revolutionize this country. And it worked. They went after the entertainment industry in Hollywood. It worked. They went after academia. It worked. They went after the mainstream media. It worked. They went after Silicon Valley. It worked. I talk about those four institutions all the time, almost entirely dominated by the establishment left-wing point of view. They controlled the public narrative, so much so that after 3 years and change of Russia, what's the new attack against Trump today? Oh, Russians are interfering in the 2020 election. And the Republicans are incompetent to fight back. So, yeah, I mean, the other thing that was interesting in the debate, and you can't fault Bernie for this, but the rest of them you can, they asked at the end, listen, what do you think about the rules of the Democratic Party and the idea of superdelegates? Do you think the person who wins the popular vote in each state should win the majority of delegates? And all 5 of them said no, except Bernie. So 5 people that will lecture you on the problems with the Electoral College and Hillary should be president because she won the popular vote say, but in our party, we don't want a popular vote. I mean, the hypocrisy is astounding. It's so in your face. Look, Penn from Penn and Teller, smart dude. He's an autodidact. He taught himself, never went to university. I've talked to professors and I've asked, can I come sit in your class without paying? They say, sure. The most expansive, brilliant library in the history of the world is literally available at your fingertips right now on a computer. You can educate yourself. Now, there are things, right, that you need to go to school specifically for. And when I tell young people that I know that are getting into college, it's like, if you have an idea, there's some specific thing you want to do that you need in a college education, that's fine, go. But if you're like I was, it's like, I just want to go get hammered and I'll figure it out as I go along. You're making a huge mistake. Should you have to bail me out for my mistakes? Should you have to pay for my student loans? No, it was my mistake. I knew what I was doing. I was an adult. At the age I was where I was making that mistake that I shouldn't be held accountable for, of getting all this student loan money as I was partying every night. My forefathers were fighting in world wars at the same age. So that's my bad. Not yours, mine. And I owe that money back, and we'll pay it back. It's very slowly, but... that's the truth. Now, was I lied to? Yes, I was lied to. I was told, oh, you'll be guaranteed this great job. I have a master's degree my current job that I have now, you know what degree I need? A GED or a high school diploma. I have a master's degree. So I was lied to. People gave me bad advice, but it was still my decision. Meduz is from Denmark. I should have been talking about their healthcare system with him. Yeah, welcome. Welcome to anyone who's new. Thank you. And all my old friends, too. Right. That's exactly right, Meduz. Like, people just point to, like, and it's actually a stereotype, which I remember I had the first, communication class I had in college. The third day they asked who believed in stereotypes or who used stereotypes. And I raised my hand. I was the only one in the class. And I got in this huge argument because people were saying, that's bigoted. And I was like, well, no, it's not. Like, stereotypes make sense evolutionarily wise, right? So let's say, our ancestor, in caveman time, sees a saber-toothed tiger. They're not going to be like, it would be unfair of me to judge that perhaps this tiger would like to eat me. They had a stereotype based on previous reactions that, okay, that thing has big teeth, it's scary, run, fight or flight. Right? That's a stereotype. That's the beginning of stereotypes. For example, I've never been to China, but I have an idea of what China looks like. Not just from pictures I've seen, but from stories I've heard. That's a stereotype. I engage in stereotypes all the time. So do you, regardless if you think so or not. If you see a couple of nuns walking down the street on one side, and then a couple of guys that look like bulky, wearing leather with chains and stuff on the other side, you're probably going to assume the guys with the chains and stuff have more of a chance to actually physically attack me than the nuns. That's a stereotype. Now, the key is, when you have these stereotypes, don't leave them dominate your life. Be willing to update when you get more information. So if I see a black guy who's 6'9" and looks incredibly muscular, and I think, man, that guy's pretty athletic, and then I start talking to him, and he's like, actually, I'm terrible. I can't play anything. Actually, I'm into computers, and I'm like, then I adjust. I'm like, oh, okay. But there's no harm in me having that original stereotype. And anyone who wants to make you out to be a demon for that is ridiculous. They have an agenda. So, yeah, we have an idea of what Denmark's like, but no one talks about the challenges or the unique situation of Denmark. Even I'm guilty of this, right? Of course. But it's just so funny. No one looks at how each country is unique and what happens. For example, Denmark's operating on a scale that's way different than the United States as far as the amount of people there, the amount of total healthcare costs that are going in, things like that. Right. That's exactly right. Homogenous and monoculture. And I said that when I debated that YouTuber Destiny, and all of his fans were like, what are you, racist? Because I was like, well, look, when we're talking about healthcare, everyone's kind of monocultured over, oh, what's that mean? Well, it means a lot, because it means that the healthcare, if you have people all coming from the same culture, then chances are the healthcare problems that they're having are all going to be very similar. That doesn't mean one race is better than another, and that wasn't saying anything like that, right? Yeah, so I thought that was interesting about the the popular vote business. But yeah, it was a joke. I thought the debate was not a good look for the Democrats. I thought it was regrettable. I think that, and look, this is something that you could kind of also point the finger at Trump for. I'm a nerd. For me, it's I'd like to talk about what policy can we have to help with the opioid crisis? What policy decisions can we make to make sure that veterans receive proper health care? What can we do to ensure long-term economic stability and to get out of debt? Things like that. But we don't have those. It's more of a personal, you're voting for who you think's more popular. in many cases. My reasons for voting for Trump, I'm very open and honest about them. It was because I thought that there was a corrupt establishment that would do anything to maintain power, and Trump was seen as an outsider. I think that that's still true. I think that fighting that corruption is the number one. Yeah, Tom, I hear you. I think that that's still my number one issue. Tom, that's Tom, by the way, on YouTube right now. That's my campaign manager. Maybe in 2022 again. Yeah, I'm with you, Tom. I'd love to have you on and talk about where the Democratic Party candidates stand now at some point. And I did think that was in a more entertaining debate as far as finally they stopped pretending they're all buddy-buddy and showed what was going on. But I think if you're watching from outside, you're like, it seemed kind of petty. I don't know. If you're someone who's like, I'm thirsty for someone who's not Donald Trump and all of his personal attacks, and you tuned into this debate, you'd be like, oh, I guess that side's more the same. Maybe not to the extent, but you see what I'm saying. So yeah, that's what I felt about the debates. I don't know about that next. There's certainly African Americans have like different health problems, like sickle cell, for example. Like we know for a fact that there's diseases that are specific to certain races or certain geographical areas and people that come from those geographical areas and things like that. And there's certainly different challenges with like, for example, like without even getting into racial, I'm guessing, I don't know this, but I'm guessing in a lot of these places that have universal health care, that their population probably isn't as obese on average. And believe it or not, something upwards of 40% of our spending healthcare-wise is on complications from diabetes, much of which comes from being a big fat guy like me. So the cost of our everyday healthcare is going to be higher based on that cultural difference. That's, to me, that's not a race thing. It's not saying this culture is better than that, but that's just, the types of food we're eating, the types of stuff we're exposed to, the types of life disorders, right? Like alcoholism or, a lot of smoking. Oh, yeah, Big Sky. Sorry, I'm live. We had some vehicle things. Oh, that might be true, Nexus. I just don't know about that. I can't speak to that. But, yeah, sorry, Big Sky. I had some vehicle situations going on, tow trucks and whatever. So my normally scheduled time was a little different today. So, yeah, that's what. Right, Original 13, absolutely. Sugars, things like that. And look, we have to ask ourselves, if you want to talk about universal health care, there's a lot of troubling things that, like real difficult problems that we need to ask ourselves. If we say health care is a right, does that mean then people that put a strain on that right for you deserve to be told they have no right to put that strain on you? So, for example, once we say health care is a right, now we're all entitled to it. But let's say then it starts to become scarce. There's a problem of scarcity. In other words, there's so many people that to get proper health care for everyone, we have to ration it somewhat, right? Okay, makes sense. And the people that are going often are doing things in their life that they could have personal control over that would mean they would have to use healthcare less. For example, we know obesity is one of those things. So if I'm now reliant on my government for healthcare and there is no private insurance, that's what Bernie wants, right? And the reason is that healthcare is a right, and my being obese is something within my control, and it's putting a strain on your right and other people's right to get healthcare. Does the government have the right to tell me that I can no longer be obese? It's an interesting question. Now, right now, I just read an article, but I haven't done the video on it yet because I can't verify the information. But I read an article that the NHS, the National Healthcare System in the UK, one area in the UK passed a law that said that if you're found guilty of some form of bigotry, you are no longer applicable to receive health care under the NHS, unless it's a life-threatening emergency. So if you have a broken arm, but they rule that you said something transgender phobic, sorry, well then go pay for your own health care. Well, what if the system said you're not allowed to get your own health care, like Bernie's system? The problem's not just Bernie. It's the people that would get into power if Bernie's system was put in place. Again, do you think that Marx or Stalin, do you think they got into power? Not Marx, but do you think Stalin got into power saying hey, I'm going to screw people over. I'm going to put people in gulags. I don't. I think he legitimately thought this is what would be best for the country. But as problems arose, when you're an authoritarian like that, you only know how to solve that problem in one way: control, power, force. And as more problems arise, more force is necessary. Until 50 million people were starving. There used to be signs placed in what's the modern day Ukraine. What they did was they went through and all the farmers, they called them the kulaks in the Ukraine. And these were people that owned humble farms. Today, they would be people barely subsiding. But they owned some land and they knew how to farm and they'd been doing it for generations. And they employed people in these towns. Well, the Bolsheviks would come in and rile up the town and say, how dare those people own the land? That's your land. And they'd get these kulaks and they would kill them or they would exile them. And as a result of that, something like 20 million Ukrainians starved to death. It was so bad that they put signs up in the Ukraine that said, remember, no matter how hungry you get, it's immoral to eat your children. Those were real government signs. Do you think that was Stalin's intent? No. So even if you say, well, Bernie's a good dude, this stuff wouldn't be happening, look at the people under him. Look at the people you saw in the Veritas videos. And that's another thing I wanted to talk about from this debate before I head out here. Right? Bernie was asked about his radical supporters. First off, Bernie makes an incredible, ridiculous answer. Maybe some of them are bots. How insulting is that to Bernie's supporters? Hey, Bernie supporter, if you're out there voraciously defending Bernie in a way that he doesn't find acceptable, he thinks you're a bot. He doesn't even possibly think you could be a real person. Now, secondly, notice that Bernie was quick both in this debate and before the debate to defend the Nevada Culinary Union from perceived attacks from his supporters. Right? For those of you who don't know, Nevada Culinary Union basically comes out and it's one of the bigger voting blocks for the Democratic primary in Nevada because all the hotels and casinos, etc. They came out and were like, we fought really hard for our insurance with our union. And Bernie wants to take away our private insurance. So we don't know about that. And supposedly Bernie supporters attack them, I think verbally. I don't think there's any accusation of physical violence, but basically calling them all sorts of names and just being genuine bigots, which led to some great stuff. Bernie comes out and apologizes. Keith Ellison comes out and says, oh, how dare they say, but can anybody give me an example of a violent Bernie supporter? And then Steve Scalise is like, yeah, I can think of one. The guy that shot me. Their ability to rewrite history is just amazing. It's amazing. And by the way, Bernie says, what I'll say to the Nevada Culinary Union is that I guarantee your quality of healthcare will only improve. That's a lie. It's a blatant lie. Unions like this that spent years and years building up their healthcare benefits have incredibly good benefits, top of the line benefits, right? There is no way that the exact quality of benefits that these unions have right now will be replicated under Medicare for All. That is literally impossible. Unless he's claiming some people under Medicare for All will have better insurance than other people. That seems quite bigoted, Bernie. If it's a right, aren't we all entitled to the same health care? So how in God's name is he going to provide the exact same quality of health care that only the highest level people have right now to all of us? That's just a lie. Now, you could say it's for the greater good. Yes, some people right now that have excellent health care will have to sacrifice some of that because morally we need to provide health care to more people. That's fine if that's the argument you're making. But don't lie. Yes, these people will sacrifice. It's just true. He won't tell the truth. Bernie's lying to them, right? But the point I wanted to make is Bernie is quick to apologize to his constituents. He's looking for their votes. But when the Project Veritas videos came out and we saw Bernie campaign worker after Bernie campaign worker, or when Steve Scalise was shot, or when a Bernie supporter tried to run a van through a bunch of Trump supporters the other day, or where a Bernie supporter tried to put explosives in a police or in a jail the other day to break people out, Bernie doesn't apologize for any of that. So how does that make sense? You only apologize. And this goes back, I've been saying this for years. I said it the week after Charlottesville. I've done video after video on this. Bernie, when Gifford got shot, Gabby Gifford, when she got shot, right? Bernie fundraised off that. He said, is it even safe to be a Democrat in Arizona? The Republicans need to rein in their rhetoric. These crazed Republicans, right? Then, fast forward, Steve Scalise gets shot by a Bernie supporter. Did Bernie say, I need to rein in my rhetoric, these crazed Democrats? Nope, he said, condemn all violence. How dare someone say it's just my supporters? Then, fast forward to Charlottesville. We're supposedly a right-wing person. Did Bernie say condemn all violence? Nope, he said Trump was a bigot for saying condemn all violence. It's just right-wing violence. Now we're right back to, if my people are doing bad things, and my people are good people, you can't have it both ways. If anytime someone on the right does something, it's because of Trump's rhetoric, then anytime someone does something on the left, it should be from the left-wing rhetoric. I choose to not blame the specific politician, but I'm consistent. Unlike Bernie, who wants to specifically blame Republicans when it's a right-wing person, but when it's a left-wing person, it's all violence is bad. He'll apologize when his supporters go after left-wing constituents, but if they're running vans into Trump supporters, not a peep. When they're talking about putting Trump supporters in re-education centers, these are people working on his campaign. Not a peep. And not just 1, 5, 6 people that were saying this stuff. Bernie knows what he's doing. He could have came out and said, look, clearly I condemn all violence. Clearly I condemn anyone in my name that's going out and being ridiculous and either verbally or physically attacking people. Clearly. That's it. But when you start signaling out, when it's Democrats, I'll talk about them and I'm really concerned about it, blah, blah, blah. When it's a Republican that does it, it's just right-wing violence. But then when it's one of my supporters that's going after a right-wing person, I don't have to really call it out by name. That's garbage. Be consistent on it. And it is clear. I'm not saying that Bernie should be held accountable to all of his supporters. I've said this over and over again. Every candidate, every political ideology will have extremists. We shouldn't judge the mean or the average people by the extremists. But it seems clear to me that there is a problem with extremists with some Bernie supporters. Now, if he doesn't want to address it, that's fine. I'm not saying that's an automatic death knell that I wouldn't vote for him. But how can the very people that say, even when someone like the Pittsburgh synagogue shooter, who starts off his manifesto being like, I hate Trump, Trump sold out to the Jews, blah, 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 blah. What did they all do? They blamed Trump for that guy. Even though he says, I hate Trump, that's still Trump's fault. But then people that are blatantly taking Bernie talking points, without Obamacare, millions will die, and going out and shooting a Republican ball field. That's not the Democrats' fault. That's all I want. Equal application. You could say, yes, blame both Trump and Bernie in that situation, or you could say blame neither. I choose to basically say blame neither. But you don't get to say, it's immoral. And again, it's not just fat, regular guys like me. We're talking the mainstream media. We're talking Democrat politicians. Remember, one of the people running Bernie Sanders' campaign, Simone something, I believe, she was famously on, was it MSNBC or CNN, where they're showing footage of a white girl in school, 16, who was beaten by a group of black girls for wearing a MAGA hat. And she goes, cry me a river, white people being attacked. And she's one of the people, it is clear that there's an ideology permeating through Bernie's campaign, regardless if he believes it or not, or he's endorsing it, I'm not saying he is, of people that think by any means necessary. It's okay to be pissed off and violent. And if you don't believe me, let's see what happens if he doesn't win the nomination in Milwaukee. Of course, Bernie will be a good little Democrat, and he'll say, I've received another lake house. Please stop rioting. My 4th lake house will be more beautiful. It will have more bread lines. My Bernie sucks more as the night goes on. I can do Bernie Mania in the beginning. What goes on in my Discord? People just chatting, I guess, about things. Most of the people many of the people you see in this chat are there. So, yeah, I should go. My wife's going to be coming home soon. Let me ask you all, okay, done with politics. I hope everyone enjoys this. So let me ask you some things that have to do with my personal life. All right, so everyone that's in one of these chats, I got a hypothetical for you. Let's say that there was a man and woman that were married, and the agreement on dinner was this. The person that cooks the dinner, and then the other person has to clean dinner up, do the dishes, right? Hypothetically, that's the case, okay? Everybody got that arrangement? Now, let's say that there is a meal that's being made in the crockpot. Who cooked the meal? The person that put the stuff in the crockpot or the person that turned the crockpot on? I would argue that the person that turned the crockpot on is the one who cooked the meal. Right? Makes sense? Because the actual act of heat going on in the crockpot is what's cooking. So the person who does that process is the cooker. Therefore, if I turn the crockpot on, I've cooked dinner. It doesn't matter if my wife prepared dinner and put it in the crockpot. I'm the one who cooked it. No, original 13, because you wouldn't say if I made it on the oven that the oven cooked it. You would say the person sitting there cooked it. I am the cooker because I used the device to cook. The crockpot did the most of the work, but I'm the cooker. Yes, when I lived with Tom, that was the solution. Leave it in the sink until it gets moldy and then get your roommate to do it. That was what's going on. So I contend, because today I turned the crockpot on, that even though my wife worked all day, actually I didn't even turn the crockpot on today. My sister did, so. But I asked her to. So that's something. AJ says, do the dishes, Rob. Turning on the crockpot doesn't count. Maybe so, but I just love arguing with her about it. Oh, yeah, my wife makes awesome She can't trust me to actually put a meal together, so she gets done at the bank on Fridays at like 6:30 most of the time. So by the time she gets home, it's close to 7, and she doesn't want to start cooking then. And she knows that I'm incompetent to actually cook a meal, so she'll Thursday night put something in the crockpot in the fridge, and then she'll text me like, okay, take it out of the fridge, leave it sit there for half an hour. Now put it in the crockpot and turn it on slow. That's how we did it. Yeah, I know, I'll be doing the dishes. That's fine. But that's my life. It would suck to be married to me. I try to debate about everything, as Tom knows and the people there. So yeah, I had a lot more to talk about today, but that's all I'm going to get to. I'm going to wrap up here. Tomorrow night, I think I'll be doing my normal live stream on Drone Tech or SJG's channel from 8 until 9. Sundays, I'm going to start to do maybe just a video in the morning. Probably no live stream on Sundays. Because I'd like to spend some time with the family on Sundays. Just to wrap up, we talked about the debate and all things silly with it and some of the things I liked and whatever. We talked about, again, check out Pete the Patriot. Just Pete the Patriot on YouTube. I won this contest on his channel where I got a piece of the wire fence from the DMZ. I think that's incredibly cool, and I'll be hanging it up in my office. So check out his channel. Please follow me in the description, and I see a lot of my mods are putting stuff up. If anyone gave me a super chat or a lemons on DLive, thank you very much. Please go to DLive, and this is something I'm serious with. I'm going to start doing half of my live stream on DLive. So the first hour will be on all platforms and the second only on DLive. For those of you, if you're listening on YouTube or Twitter right now, Periscope, and you can't see the links in my description, just go to DLive.tv, and it's just Rob Noer, capital R-O-B, capital N-O-E-R-R. You can find me on DLive, but I'm going to start doing half the things there. The reason is this, that DLive is more of blockchain technology, and they seem to be very serious about not censoring people. So you could follow me on there, and I'm trying to not only build up that platform, but to build up my following there. YouTube's still going to be having half my live streams as well, and all of my regular videos that aren't live streams will be hosted on YouTube. So that's the same. Yeah, and if you get a DLive account, let me know, and I'll try to follow you back. Really will. Anything else to say in closing? Yeah. If you consider giving me financial support, I'd really appreciate it. In order of importance of what I'm going for financially right now is, 1, subscription to a podcast service to turn my live streams into a podcast. 2, a microphone for my phone. which is going to be like $250. It comes with a program and stuff that I could then use as a professional microphone when I go to events like hopefully this Harrisburg Second Amendment rally. Third, I need a computer, a desktop that could actually handle editing software and stuff because I'm just using my regular old laptop right now. And then, then I'll need to buy editing software and things like that. So I got a lot of work to get to. I'm not a wealthy man. Wealthy in intelligence, maybe, and looks, but financially, not so much. So anyone who donates to me, anytime I get new equipment, I'll be sure to let you know. Again, anyone who donated to me today, I apologize. I'm going to find a way so that I could see that sort of stuff. And I'm going to DLive right now to hit this treasure box. Now, let me just give a forewarning. The last time I tried to go to DLive while I was doing a live stream, it somehow stopped my video because it won't leave my video up on two places at the same time. So if my video stops, the audio will probably continue. But I'm just warning you, the video might stop here. So let's check it out. My channel. And... oh my goodness! I'm just warning you, the video might stop here. So wow, thank you. Yeah, I had a lot of donations today. That's awesome. Thank you, Preacher. Dawn, the Real Ford Nation, it tells me the top contributors, so I see those. So yeah, thank you. Now there's a chess. I hit this chess. It says distribute rewards. Okay. There we go. I hit that. It says it will distribute in 29 seconds. Interesting. It's a very interesting system. I really like it. So yeah, get on the DLive. It's different. And I'm telling you, the thing about DLive, there's quirky stuff with it, and that's interesting. I'm still trying to figure out a lot of it. But the thing that's really excellent about it is, for example, we couldn't stream that debate on YouTube. American Joe tried to, they gave him the boot. Which you might say, well, fair enough, that was on NBC. It's their right. But what about, the State of the Union and stuff like that? They'll give you the boot. I'm monetized, but everything I do is temporarily demonetized until it's manually reviewed. I think, as far as conservative commentary goes, I'm thoroughly against violence. I don't think you could accuse me of being a bigot or a racist or anything like that. I try to welcome people from all sides of the aisle to come on the show. Yet still, it's considered not ad-friendly because I'm conservative, I guess. So, whatever. So I'm not going to put my fate in their hands, the ability to reach people solely in YouTube's hands. So it's cool. Remember, if you're watching on a platform where you can't see the description of my video, DLive.tv, and it's just Rob, capital R-O-B, and then capital N-O-E-R-R. And it's easy to start your own account on there as well. So, did the lemons go out? Lucky. All right. The lemons went out. Awesome. So, all right. Well, hey, really, thank you all so much. I'm going to enjoy my Friday. I don't know if we're going to be doing the game thing this Saturday or not. We got a lot of vehicle working on to go on between my wife's vehicle, her sister's vehicle, and my vehicle. And all of them need work. Me working just means standing there holding parts and tools while other people work. But nonetheless, I contribute. So, thank you all so much. It's great. I have the best audience. You guys are the best. Aside from financial donations, if you could just get me out there, recommend some of my shorter videos, tell people that I'm incredibly handsome or something, just lie to them to get them in here, and then I'll win them over with my charisma or my Bernie mania. I'm international on DLive now. Fantastic. So no, really, so if you could recommend me to some other people, I'd really appreciate it in any way. And if not me, other social media people or other independent content providers. So, all right. Yep. I'll catch everyone next time. Thank you all so much. Thank you to my mods. Thank you to everyone that donated. And, all right, everyone, as always, have a good one.